We made to the end of 2024. At the beginning of the year, I asked Covenant and asked myself to read through the entire Bible. And we're at the end. This is it. We're also preaching. We have for the last 52 weeks. We took 3 weeks off in August, I think, but we preached through what we were reading. And I hope that's been beneficial to you. It has been beneficial to me. I will admit that there were what used to call them dog days of summer. We had some of those. We were reading through the Old Testament, and there seems to be things that were repetitive. And we said, we've read this before, we've done this before, and yeah, that's true. That we had that repetition going on there as well. But the more I thought about it, that's not a bad thing, right? Repetition is really how we learn. If you think about going back to when we were in school, writing, y'all remember that? We used to write things down on a piece of paper. Well, we had to practice writing all the time. Almost all of our school, at least middle school, elementary school, we had to practice writing. We practiced spelling, we practiced mathematics. We practiced because the more we practiced, the more the repetition helped us get better at it, right? So I had no problem with some of the repetition stuff in the Old Testament because that's what it's about. That's how we learn. Well, most of us have seen that repetition throughout the Bible until we get to this last book that we just are finished reading, the book of Revelation. Actually, the first line says the revelation from Jesus Christ when you actually read the first chapter. Now, if you do a quick read, if you're just reading it for collateral reading, just trying to get through it because it's sort of bizarre, you don't understand it and everything, you don't find a lot of repetition there on the surface, at least. But there is some repetition in this book, the book of Revelation. And there are a few unique things about this book as well. So when we read this book, I need you to note these things. First of all, this is a vision. This is a dream of John when he's on the island of Patmos. Remember, he was sort of excommunicated, sort of put off there, right? He's one of the only disciples that sort of died of old age. He was not killed, but he was exiled to Patmos. And it was in this time of exile that he had this vision, and that this is a dream. Now, I bet most of you have had dreams before, and you woke up the next day and tried to explain them. How'd that go for you? Well, we have a difficult time sometimes trying to put in the words that we're using of what we saw in our dream, in our vision. And this is John. And we got to remember, this is vision imagery. This is not just a word or a time in history that they're recording of something, the events that they witnessed, like John witnessed those events in Jesus' life, that the Last Supper, that last night with his disciples. He wrote all that down. If you have a red letter Bible, there's a lot of red letter words, and John 14, 15, 16. John was there. He was able to remember and quote Jesus pretty closely. But with a vision and a dream, well, how's that going to work out? Well, I want you to understand that John is writing in the context of his day. All right, so first of all, any imagery in the dream and the visions that he had, he was having to interpret those in his time. And his time was, 80, 90 AD, something like that, 50 so years after Jesus had died. And so whatever he was trying to communicate to us, he was using those images. And so we literally have to go back to the context of John's time to figure out what some of these images mean. All right, so that's a difficulty when we're reading the book of Revelation, is going back and getting those images correctly. First of all, he is talking to his original audience. This was a time when Domitian was the Roman emperor, and there was persecution. There were Christians being killed during this time, and so he's writing to that audience. Okay, And also, when you think about dreams and visions, you ever had one of those dreams where you it took up a long period of time, but you had no idea how long it was? How do you put that into explaining the dream, right? And that was John's deal, right? He had this time was going through his mind and during these visions, and then he was trying to interpret time in these visions into pen and paper in what we have now in the book of Revelation. So these time references more are symbolic rather than literal. Too many people are reading the book of Revelations as literal. Why? Because they're not thinking of it as a dream or a vision. So the time is more symbolic, it's not literal. And when you have 1,000-year reign, that sort of represents the completeness of Christ's rule. That 1,000 years symbol was a symbol of completeness when John was actually writing this and trying to put down in his words and his images of the day what he saw in his vision. So the numbers and the sequences that we see there in Revelations are more theological rather than chronological. And again, too many people put chronological timestamps on this book. We can't do that, all right? More symbolic, okay? But here's some repetition that we see in Revelation, repetition that we've seen throughout God's story, that there is an emphasis on spiritual transformation. That's what it is, all right? And this is the book of Revelations we see as a call to faithful living in the present. It's encouraged. This book of Revelation also encourages a faithful witness in our current circumstances. It emphasizes hope based on God's sovereignty. And then this calls for the book of Revelation calls for a present engagement with kingdom values. Back at the beginning of the book, Revelation chapter 1, verse 3. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. You remember the book of Revelation talks about the four horsemen, the four horses. Well, here's the black one, right? So go back and read the context of that one, and you will see the horses. All right. So there's 7 blessings in Revelation, and technically, when you read the Beatitudes, by the way, there are 7, but we're actually doing 9, right? But all these 7 blessings relate to the Word of God and the witness of Jesus Christ. And that is the theme of the Bible, trusting God at His Word and being witness to the world each day. Here's a quick summary of Revelation. Holy living in an unholy world. Holy living in an unholy world. That's the theme of God's story that we have had from the very beginning when we read all the way back in Genesis. All right? We all have a desire to be blessed by God. And January 5th, we're starting a series called Bless Your Heart, based on the Beatitudes. There's typically, again, 7 Beatitudes. We're actually going to go 9, I think, because the context lends itself to that. But it's how he kicks off. Jesus kicks off this famous sermon on how to live a holy life in an unholy world with these Beatitudes. Matthew chapter 5. Oh, one last thing. I am going to read through the Bible again in 2025. Now, I bought, like literally a week ago, the 1-year chronological Bible. Yep, actually a book with paper pages. Can you believe it? I've been reading digital all through the Bible all year, but I'm going to go back to paper and read through the 1-year chronological Bible. It's a little bit different take because it's not going to have you jumping around when you get to David and Solomon and those middle parts there. It will take you chronologically through. All right, so when you have repetition, it will be pretty quick. All right, so periodically I'll be doing an email about what I'm reading and where I'm reading it. But I want to challenge you to commit to one thing in 2025. Read from the Bible at least once a day. And if you read through the Bible, great. I hope you do that. I already talked to a couple of people that are planning to do it again, maybe using the same reading plan, and I still have some resources that will help you with that. But read through the Bible once a day. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Just read the Bible once a day. Because, I don't know about you, but I want communication. I like communication, and God has chosen His Bible as the one place that He will always communicate with us. He will communicate to us. Have a great 2025. God bless you.